A man asked Jesus a question, not an honest question. Luke 10:25 tells us he was a lawyer, an expert in the Mosaic law, and that he stood up to put Jesus to the test. The question was a trap dressed as theology. "Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus turns it back on him. What does the law say? The lawyer answers correctly, "Love God, love your neighbor." Jesus says, "Do this and you will live." And then the lawyer asks a follow-up question. And this second question is the one that exposes everything. "And who is my neighbor?" Luke says he asked it desiring to justify himself. He was not confused about the answer. He was looking for a boundary, a definition narrow enough to make the command manageable, a limit on who qualified for his love so that he could fulfill the law without it costing him too much. Jesus does not answer the question directly. He tells a story, and the story begins on a road. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho, 17 miles, a descent of 3,300 feet through some of the most treacherous terrain in all of Judea. The road cut through the Judean wilderness, narrow passes, rocky overhangs, blind corners. It was so consistently dangerous that it had earned a name that every person in Jesus' audience would have known immediately. They called it the Way of Blood. Not metaphorically, literally, because of how many travelers had been ambushed, robbed, and left for dead on that road. When Jesus says a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among robbers, his audience did not picture a random misfortune. They pictured a road they knew, a danger they had heard about. Some of them had walked it themselves. The man is stripped, beaten, and left half dead. The Greek word is hemathane, half dead, technically alive, visibly dying. The distinction matters because it is precisely this ambiguity that becomes the moral test for the two men who pass by next. A priest comes down the road. He sees the man. He passes on the other side. A Levite comes. He sees the man. He passes on the other side. Here is what most people are never told about these two men. They were not simply callous. They were not indifferent to human suffering in some general sense. They were navigating a specific religious dilemma that every person in Jesus' audience would have understood immediately. Under the Mosaic law, specifically Numbers 19:11 to 13, touching a corpse rendered a person ritually unclean for 7 days. During those 7 days, they could not enter the temple, could not perform their priestly duties, could not participate in any religious service. And the man on the road was hemathane, half dead, from a distance, on a dangerous road, with robbers possibly still nearby. He may have looked entirely dead. If the priest touched him and the man was already dead, 7 days of uncleanness, 7 days away from the temple, 7 days unable to serve. He chose the temple over the man. He chose ritual purity over human life. And Jesus, standing in the temple court, speaking to a lawyer who had dedicated his life to the precise interpretation of that same law, is saying something that would have landed like a thunderclap. The law, when it becomes a reason to walk past a dying man, has already been broken at its deepest level. Then the Samaritan comes, and here the story becomes deliberately offensive to everyone listening. Samaritans were not simply disliked by first-century Jews. They were theologically despised. They were considered half-breeds, descendants of Jews who had intermarried with Assyrian settlers after the fall of the Northern Kingdom in 722 BC. They had their own version of the Torah, their own temple on Mount Gerizim, their own priesthood. To a devout Jew, a Samaritan was not just a foreigner, he was a heretic, a corruption of the covenant people. When Jesus makes the Samaritan the hero, the audience would have reacted the way a modern congregation might react if the hero of a parable turned out to be the person they least expected, least respected, and most instinctively dismissed. The Samaritan sees the man, and Luke 10:33 says he had compassion. The Greek word is splagchnizomai, and it is one of the most visceral words in the entire New Testament. It means to be moved in the bowels, to feel something in the deepest physical seat of emotion. It is the same word used when Jesus saw the crowds and had compassion on them, when he healed the leper, when the father saw his prodigal son from a great way off. It is not polite sympathy. It is not calculated charity. It is something that moves before the mind decides. The Samaritan pours oil and wine on the wounds. Oil to soothe, wine to disinfect. He puts the man on his own animal, meaning he walks so the wounded man can ride. He brings him to an inn. He pays 2 denarii, 2 days' wages, and tells the innkeeper, "Whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back." He makes an open-ended financial commitment to a stranger on the most dangerous road in Judea, and then Jesus turns back to the lawyer. He does not ask, who was the neighbor to the priest? Who was the neighbor to the Levite? He asks, which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The lawyer cannot bring himself to say the word Samaritan. He says, the one who showed him mercy. Jesus says, go and do likewise. Notice what Jesus did. The lawyer asked, who is my neighbor? Meaning, who qualifies for my love? Who do I have to include? Jesus answered a different question entirely. He did not define who the neighbor is. He showed what neighboring looks like. The question is not who deserves your love. The question is whether you are willing to be the kind of person who loves. The lawyer came looking for a boundary. Jesus removed it entirely. Comment below. Have you ever been the priest or the Levite? Have you ever had a legitimate reason to walk past and taken it? Be honest. Because the power of this parable is that it does not let any of us stay on the safe side of the road. Tomorrow, the two sons, and the parable Jesus told inside the temple 3 days before his crucifixion to the men who were already planning to kill him.